Hello, and welcome to THF Conversations Farmer Spotlight, celebrating social innovators, industry experts, and trailblazers. I'm Debra Reid, Curator of Agriculture and the Environment at the Henry Ford, and today we have the pleasure of talking with a farm team, father and son, Mike Meyer and Kyle Meyer at Meyer Grain Farms. Thank you so much for welcoming us to your farm today. I see a lot of old machinery in the job I do as a curator. Could you introduce me to this modern machine?
Behind us, we have a DB60 John Deere 47-row, 15-inch spacing soybean planter. And attached to it is a John Deere 410 8RX.
We plant roughly 3,500 acres of soybeans with this unit. We're able to no-till, minimum till on most of our crops, and stale seed bed where it's prepped in the fall, and we can go in and plant that crop at precise depth and uniformity to get a good stand.
So you introduced us to the machine, but could you now tell us how you use it to get crops in the ground?
We utilize variable rate technology. So this planter has hydraulic motors that can change the rate as we're going across the field. So if we're going into a soil type that is real sandy or higher organic matter, that we can change our rates. So we can thin the beans out in the good, better ground. We can increase the population on the higher knolls to move the population around to increase our yields. Here we have our first screen on my armrest, shows a population map of this field. Each zone has a different rate. Can be anywhere from 110,000 seeds per acre to 170,000 seeds per acre. As this planter goes across this field, it's going to automatically change its rates once it hits these different zones. These are our seed tanks. This is what holds the soybeans itself. It can hold about 100 units, approximately 100 acres. We can plant on a field depending on seed size, could be more or less. So what happens is, out of those tanks, it gets blown by air through these tubes, which then fills this box automatically, keeps it full. Right here's the hopper itself. So this is always going to stay full each row until we're empty.
Obviously, there are a lot of moving parts. You've just described a lot of moving parts to help you use this machine. At the Henry Ford, we have this learning framework called Model I. One of the things that we talk about in this Model I learning framework is actions of innovation, and one of those is uncover. So I was wondering if you could say a little bit about what you recognize that you need to do to improve the function of the machine as you use it.
Improving the function of the machine, there's a lot of maintenance items that we need to look at continuously every year. Seed disc is the most important. You need to check your gap in between your seed discs at your contact level. So we need to make a perfect V as we're coming through to get them seeds placed in there. If we don't have that perfect V, the sidewall is going to fall in, and we're going to have inconsistent depth as we're going across the field.
The sidewall of the soil.
So if we don't have a right V, that wall can fall in, and then now we have a bean at 1.5 inches. We might have a bean at 1 inch. We might have a bean at 3/4. So we want to make sure those seed discs have perfect contact, and we can make a perfect trench as we're coming in. So the soybeans itself are going to be attached to this disc, and we spray graphite on these discs. When we put this in our meter, we put this in the meter here, and we lock this in here. So when this is turning, it's got vacuum. The beans are being stuck to the disc. Once it comes past the vacuum, then the soybean's going to fall through the seed tube, come through our disc openers, which is going to open the slot, drop the seed into the ground, and these press wheels are going to close that back, and then our closing wheels are going to finish it and close that trench. And then we need to check our gauge wheels and make sure our gauge wheels are tight to those discs, because if the gauge wheels are not tight to those discs, we can have dry dirt fall into that trench. So if you have dry dirt fall into that trench, that can change your depths. Another thing that we need to check is we need to check and make sure we don't have any bearings that are going out of our closing wheels. If that closing wheel on the back is wobbling with a bad bearing, that can cause our closing to be off, and you could be, you know, if it's over to the side, left or right, if it's moving like this, we're not going to be able to close that trench. So it needs to be firm, everything needs to be tight. The parallel arms, which moves that unit up and down, there's bushings in there, and if those wear out, you need to change them and keep this row unit tight. When we want that thing going through the field, it needs to be perfectly sound and true, because we don't want any movement or oscillation. We want it all to be intact.
Those are really key to getting the crop consistently
Yes,
on the ground.
Give every soybean the same chance.
You mentioned some of the many moving parts, and you started to talk about GPS. So in terms of some of the information that you use to help you make the most of the machine, what is some of that information?
Everything is ran GPS and maps and data. So I'll have my variable rate soybean maps, and I pull them into my screen. And that gives the planner an idea or reference. Let's say we're in this square of dirt, it might drop 160,000 seeds per acre. If I move over to you, it might only drop 120,000 because the soil changes. So it has that map built into the screen. And when you're going across the field with GPS reference, it knows where that is, and it can automatically change the population on the back of the planner. If we're in crooked headlands or angled rows and I'm coming in on a wedge, it'll start shutting down rows individually automatically to save seed, so I'm not overlapping and wasting seed. If I can place the seeds where I need it the most and thin the population and increase the population, what happens is in the harvest time, them beans are less likely to lodge. If I have too high of a population in a high yielding environment, those beans tend to lodge. If I can thin them out and have better standability, it gives us a longer window to harvest.
And not without its risk, but you've planned and manufacturers have designed this, that's another action of innovation, to provide optimum performance. So when you approached the machine and needed to rebuild it, what sorts of things did you want it to do better? And how much rebuild did you do?
I took this planter completely apart. Every row unit came off. There was basically a bare frame behind me. But what I wanted, as I said earlier, is I want the parallel arms tight. I want the bushings to have no slop. I want the seed disc contact to be correct. I want the gauge wheel tires to be a tight seal to the disc to not allow dry dirt coming into my trench. You want my closing wheels to be tight. I don't want loose bearings back there. I want to be able to have that closed.
So that soil covers evenly.
And we do that too so that we don't have breakdowns in season.
Yes.
We got to go because of our weather windows are tight, and it's very important every hour this is in the field. Performing top.
So how did you collaborate? That's another habit of innovators. So I wonder how you collaborated on this. Not just the rebuild, but the planting process.
I think it's just kind of all evolves in how you do things and how to be more efficient. Sometimes at the end of the day, we got a lot done and we figure out ways that we can do better the next day.
We're always talking and communicating and sitting down at the round table in the office, and we're looking at our plan, looking at what we're going to do for the year, and we discuss, areas that need attention, and we solve those problems together. Definitely takes a team, because I can't do everything.
The popular question is, how long does it take? So if the weather is right, how many acres can you put in with this machine in a day?
The most I've ever done is 525 acres in one day. But that's big fields, less turns, less moves. But on average, 300 would be a more respectable day. I'm pretty happy with that.
We'd like to try and get it planted in 14 planting days. It's just how the weather windows give it to you. But if we could go from start, perfect world, 14 days, we'd have everything planted.
And that ideal planting world is roughly the last day of frost, or you do a little risk and plan ahead of the last day?
We do a lot of weather watching and what future forecast is. We don't want to plan ahead of a real heavy rain if we can help it, but sometimes you have to because you might be rained out for 5 weeks. We don't know that. And you got to be able to adjust. We reprioritize every 15 minutes sometimes.
There's also these things called insurance dates, and we like to kind of stay close to those to be covered insurance-wise for replants or anything like that, because it's a lot of money you're putting into the ground. And if I go out there and I do a failure and I don't get anything back, well, that didn't make any sense.
And that's a fantastic example of managing risk, because it's there. Yes, but how do you manage it? And that leads to, I believe farmers are like encyclopedic in their knowledge, because you all have to know a lot about many things, given that your work relates to so many things. So beans to biodiesel, or water retention to world trade. So given, this huge topic of agriculture, what most excites you about sustaining this operation, keeping it moving?
We grow a renewable source and an important source. The food source starts here, and many other things besides food. There's nothing more rewarding than watching a crop grow, nurture it all through the season, and harvest a good crop. Sometimes it's frustrating.
There's always next year.
It's just part of it.
I think farmers are very optimistic. We really strive on opportunity and new chances. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what kind of weather we're going to get. We don't know if it's going to be a flood, a drought. We have no idea. So we have to be very optimistic. And I think that's something that's fun about it is we don't know, but we love doing it. I think that's the biggest important thing is you have to love farming. My dad's always told me that. It's something you have to love to do. And if you don't love doing this and working the long hours, you're probably not going to be a good suit for farming, because there is a lot of long hours. There's a lot of unstable decisions. There's a lot of unpredictable things that could happen. But in the end, like you said, when you get to watch that crop grow, you get to see all that hard work you did grow into something great, and we were successful. That's a pretty good feeling.
To balance that, you've already introduced some challenges or things that can be challenging. What do you see as a major challenge?
Probably weather is the most. I mean, markets are another thing, but I can control what happens when we can go. But those two, I mean, it's a wild card.
I think another challenging thing that we're experiencing now is just price increases of everything. The cost of equipment has doubled since I graduated high school. The price increases and unstable environments.
Curiosity. That's another habit of innovators. And curiosity, you've already indicated how it can help you address what a problem is. But what sorts of things keep you curious or keep you knowing that you need to know more?
Some of the curiosity things that keeps us excited about things is trying new product. Like half our soybeans this year are a plenty oil soybean. They're a high Oleic for food grade oil that used for French fries. Kentucky Fried Chicken use it for their chicken and stuff like that to add more value to our farm and more profitability. And we're always trying new chemistry on things and just ways to improve your operation or better weed control or better management of your nutrients that are out in the ground. It's all kinds of things. Bring biologicals in. There's a lot of new things that are going on.
I always get excited about new things, new technology, new products, because it gives us a chance to increase our yield, be more profitable, and that's an exciting thing for us to try, because if we stay down the old same road, well, we're going to grow the old same yield. If we don't innovate, try new things, we're going to be stuck down this same road. So it's exciting to have new stuff available.
Agriculture still is trying to design and optimize, and one of the topics at present is this notion of climate-smart agriculture and trying to reduce the carbon emissions of agriculture in the context of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But that's a huge topic, and nature naturally sequesters greenhouse gases. So I'm wondering about how you see yourself relating to this larger topic of climate-smart agriculture.
We're on a quite intensive fertilizer testing program. Everything gets tested every other year. We variable rate fertilizer, lime especially, gets put on the right place. We don't over fertilize and help that for any runoff or anything like that. And we're trying to optimize your dollar.
We're doing less passes per acre.
We're doing less passes per acre to help that. Everything we do, we try and do more with less. And labor's another issue, and we try and do all this with 5 guys. So
wider, bigger machinery. We're burning less fuel now with the new technology and John Deere or whoever it may be.
We talked about the environment and how we can change in our practices that we do. We've had a farm that we often talk about is complete blow sand. And we've changed that with the soil tilth and a good crop rotation and getting tilth back in there. We're producing a crop across that. And that's what helps with this precision agriculture of treating things different by soil type too.
Yeah, on the data side of it, we can analyze maps, pull it out of the tractors, overlay it with harvest data. I can look at zones in the field and see if I'm increasing that yield in this zone or if I'm not. That's something that's very important for us, as to how can we increase this zone that is such a low yielding environment.
You mentioned a high oleic bean for a very specific use, and I wondered, how did you learn about this bean and who encouraged you to?
We learned about the high oleic soybean through Corteva Agriscience Pioneer hybrids. They came forward with the new technology, showed us this new bean with this high oleic soybean oil and possible premiums if there is plants locally that want to take it.
They're working directly with the processors to another storage location about to use it throughout the year. And because the processors only have so much storage, and you got to store this somewhere so that you can manufacture this year round. So that made a closer drop-off point for us to make it realistic to raise more of them.
Michigan Soybean Committee works on various ways to promote new markets, perhaps. How does that high oleic bean factor in?
All that's financed basically from the farmer, because 0.5% of our product called in is taken out of our check to help pay for research and development of all these products.
And that's a real investment in that curiosity quotient. Yeah.
That's part of our investment to our future too. It's important for our sustainable agriculture to keep this going.
If you're talking to somebody interested in agriculture, what do you suggest they do to think about a career in this field?
I suggest they either find an internship, go to an agricultural school, work with your local neighbor, friend, whoever it may be, if you have any connection, to get on the farm, to learn more about it.
Yeah, you need to live and breathe it to really see if that's the way you want to make the leap. It's so capital intensive anymore. You're going to spend a lot of money to even get started. And thank God we have good people to help us get started. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here neither. So,
but there's plenty of other careers in agriculture than just being the farmer. I mean, there's the soil agronomist, there's the crop protection service side, there's custom app, there's the seed salesman, there's the guy at John Deere, there's the mechanic, there's so many different jobs in agriculture. I can't even list them all. There's so many.
Thank you, Mike and Kyle, for having us at your farm today and sharing your important work. And thank you for tuning in to this THF Conversation Farmer Spotlight. We encourage you to explore our collections at the Henry Ford in Dearborn, Michigan, or at thf.org, where you can learn more about leaders, innovators, visionaries, and entrepreneurs that inspire us every day.